I didn't know the hill was famous until my brakes started to complain on the last incline, and the radio went to static. In town, they call it Sister's Hill, as if one nun had gone rogue and built a ridge out of bad habits. The view is a patchwork of roofs, most of them slumping, chimneys like crooked teeth. I don't come up here for views. I'm more of a park-facing-the-exit kind of woman. Technically, I'm not a mistress. That's a name other people give you when you show up decisive, wear black, and speak in complete sentences. There are no whips in my trunk, no latex. I own a clipboard and a measuring tape, and I invoice. I tell grown men to get rid of the second recliner and the collection of novelty mugs that say things like, "I'd rather be fishing," which is never true. People call me for boundaries, which is hilarious if you ever saw my kitchen junk drawer. The house was at the top of the hill, a square box with ideas. White siding. Not new, not old, just resigned. He had staked 2 solar lights at the path, and one of them was dead, which I took as an omen. A wind chime clacked like teeth. The door opened before I knocked, and there he was, the client, barefoot on the cold porch, a graying man of maybe 55 in an outfit I usually see only on the discount rack of a costume store in January. "My name is Randy," he said. "I want to be paddled." The sentence landed the way a bag of flour lands, heavy but also absurd. He stood there with a kind of bureaucratic sadness, a pacifier bobbing faintly like the end of a sentence he couldn't quite finish. It would have been easier if he had looked thrilled or deranged or at least sure. He looked instead like a tenant apologizing for the hallway smell. "I didn't bring a paddle," I said, because sometimes stating the obvious buys you a minute. "That's okay," he said. "I have my own." Something in me wanted to turn straight down the hill, back to where the roads made sense. But I also have a nasty curiosity. Call it professional interest if you want to make it respectable. You'd be amazed how many people will pay to be told what their problem is. They rarely want to fix it. They want the diagnosis framed and hung near the couch. "Right," I said. "Before we begin, a couple things. I'm not a sex worker. I don't do anything physical. My services are conversation, coaching, boundaries, and occasionally the removal of a beanbag chair." "I know," he said quickly, almost relieved. "I didn't want—" He waved a hand. The pacifier bonked his chin. "I'm not into it. Not really." He stepped aside and I walked in because I am, if nothing else, a reliable witness. The smell met me first. The manufactured sweetness of talc layered over something older, like a thrift store that only sells linens. The walls were a careful pastel, the color of chewed gum. The foyer had been transformed into a waiting room from a canceled children's show. Oversized blocks stacked to spell out RANDY, each letter its own little accusation. The floor was spotless in a way that suggested it had been mopped an hour ago, and hard, so whatever needed cleaning would come off. The light felt filtered, as if he'd put a screen between the windows and the sky. He led me down a short hall and the nursery opened like a staged apology. I say nursery because there is no other word for a room with an adult-sized crib built from plywood, hand-sanded and painted a flaking white. A rocker that could have seated a fisherman in his regrets. A chest of drawers labeled socks, shirts, and sincere attempts. On the far wall, a mural. A meadow of round-headed animals with eyes a little too human. They did not look happy. They looked complicit. "I read your ad," he said. "The one about behavior and accountability. You help people stop doing things?" "Sometimes I help them stop," I said. "Sometimes I help them admit they're not going to." He nodded as if checking a box. "I set it up," he said, letting his hand drift toward the crib with something like shame. "The whole thing. Over the last year, it got away from me." "You don't say," I murmured. He laughed, one bark, a sound that already wished it hadn't happened. "I wanted someone to tell me I was being bad," he said, the way someone says they want to buy a humidifier. That I didn't clean my room. That I won't, change. That I refuse. He swallowed. "Potty train." he added, in a voice so small I could have put it in my coat pocket and forgotten it until spring. There are things I am prepared for. The man who wants me to throw away his Ouija board, but keep the planchette for emergencies. The woman who cries when I put her college sweatshirt in the donate pile. This was not that. The absurdity of it had edges. If you looked too long, it cut. Okay, I said, because I am a professional and because sometimes a lie becomes a bridge. Let's start with why you built this. He blinked. Isn't it obvious? It's obvious what it is, I said, not why it's here. He sat on the rocker. It made a small, resentful sound. It started as a joke, he said. I mean, not funny, but do you ever start something because you can? I had the time. I thought, what if I made a room no one else would understand? A private joke. He rubbed his forehead. I regret the wallpaper most. The wallpaper was a pattern of clouds with faces. If I stared too long, they seemed to move. Not a lot, just the slightest drift, like a breath. If I squinted, each mouth made an O, the sound you make when you're surprised or drowning. My job is student housing, he said. I assign rooms. I listen to complaints. I tell 19-year-olds they can't have a deep fryer in a dorm. He gave the pacifier a suspicious look and set it on the dresser where it seemed to watch us. I became something like a mirror. The kids would come in furious, and I'd reflect it back but tidier. After a while, you're not a person. You're a function. So you built a room where you could be the opposite of a function, I said. No mirror, all mess. It was supposed to stay a room, he said. But rooms are contagious. The house caught it. He pointed toward the hall. There's a bath with a rubber duck the size of a Thanksgiving turkey. It has a name. What's the duck's name? He looked away. Maurice. I wrote Maurice on my clipboard because if you must endure ridiculousness, it helps to label it. You said you wanted paddling, I said, watching his face go pale even in pastel. The word sounded wrong in my mouth, like a loanword from a culture of very bad decisions. What you actually want, from what I can tell, is permission not to maintain this theater anymore, or permission to keep it. Either way, you want permission. I brought a paddle, he said miserably, and gestured to a neat object on the crib. It was new, of course. This man ironed his delusions. For the scenario, I was a bad boy. I didn't clean my room. I should be... He trailed off, the verb a cliff. You should be accountable, I said, because I do not spank middle-aged men, and I do not condemn strangers in their own homes, and I do not leave people worse than I found them if I can help it. Accountability isn't pain, it's a calendar. He blinked again, a slow, owlish thing. A calendar. Bad boys, I said, are make-believe. Chores are not. You want to be told what to do? Fine. Throw out the pacifier. Paint the room back to a color found in nature. Maurice can stay. He looks union. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. You get 3 trash bags. 1 for props you're keeping because you like them even though you shouldn't. 1 for props you're keeping because you're not ready to admit you shouldn't. 1 for props that are leaving this house today. He stared at me, then at the crib, then at the animals on the wall, which, ridiculous, seemed to have leaned in. It was a trick of the light, a smear on my glasses, the way quiet makes anything look haunted. The rocker moved under him as if a small tide had come in. What if I can't? He asked. Then you make the bed, I said. Every morning, even when you don't sleep in it. Especially then. It's hard to worship a stage set if you're busy changing sheets. We stood there, and for a moment neither of us spoke. The house did its own small noises, heating duct sigh, window twitch, a knock that might have been a twig or something less polite. He picked up the pacifier and turned it over like a coin. When he set it down, he placed it face down as if it could see. People think I enjoy this, he said. That it's... He gestured vaguely. I don't. I just built it. And now it exists. That, I said, is how cities are made. And mistakes, and religions, and pies, I softened my voice. You're allowed to take something apart, Randy. You are not a caretaker of a museum no one asked for. He swallowed. The rocker stopped. Outside, the wind chime found a note and held it. Will you... He lifted the paddle, winced at his own hand. I mean, would you at least tell me I've been very, very bad? That I need to do better? I'll tell you this, I said. You've made a complicated joke last too long. You need to clean it up. Today you're going to put on pants, pour the talc down the sink, and text a friend you trust that you're making changes. You'll send me 3 pictures in a week. That rocker on the curb, this crib dismantled, and Maurice relocated to a shelf in a normal bathroom that does not smell like a baby shampoo factory exploded. And if I don't? You'll pay me for another visit and I'll bring a contractor who charges by the sigh. He stared. The mural animals stared back. It is possible I imagined the slight widening of a sheep's painted eye. My mind is unkind like that. The room had the same effect as a story told too close to bedtime. Silly in daylight, sinister in half-shadow. He set the paddle down as gently as one sets down an heirloom you wish you hadn't inherited. No paddling, he said, almost to himself. No paddling, I said. You don't need punishment. You need chores. I built a world, he said, and it built me back. That's what worlds do, I said. Let's make a smaller one. We made a list. I make a beautiful list. Architectural, really, like a bridge you can walk across with both hands full. Empty the drawers. Box the costumes. Label as the past. Tape firmly. Store in attic with spider. Return never. Remove mural. Prime twice. Paint once. Replace wallpaper with the kind you can buy without explaining yourself. Text the friend. Make the bed. Pants. He added one item in his own hesitant handwriting. Get rid of paddle. He looked at me and I nodded. He smiled in that complicated way people smile when they touch the future for a second and it doesn't bite. I was almost to the door when he said, Would you like to see the bathroom? He said it as if offering a mint after a terrifying entree. I didn't, but curiosity and professionalism are cousins who refuse to stop attending the same weddings. The bathroom was smaller than I expected and cleaner, which somehow made the oversized yellow duck more alarming. Maurice sat in the tub with a patience that bordered on theological. The mirror had a film, the kind that never wipes off, only rearranges. My face looked like I'd been underwater for a while. The duck's painted eye, just the one, had a scuff that gave it a look of weary forgiveness. Hi, Maurice, I said, and tipped 2 fingers toward my forehead in a little salute. The duck, being inanimate, did not respond. The light, being a liar, flickered. At the front door, he hesitated. What if the house doesn't let me? It's a house, I said. If it talks back, call me and I'll bring a priest with a caulk gun. He almost laughed. The wind chime hiccuped. On the porch, the air felt clearer, like someone had opened a window on the side of the day. Down the hill, the town resumed being itself. Ugly, dear, unembarrassed. Text me, I said. Photos. Lists. If you get stuck, sit in a regular chair until the feeling passes. Thank you, he said. And then, after a second, I'm sorry. For what? For inviting you into something I shouldn't have built, he said. For wasting your time. You hired me, I said. Time is what I sell. You're not the first person to mistake a performance for a solution. He nodded, as solemn as a child who has just learned that Santa is unionized. He raised a hand, awkwardly, as if he were waving for the first time, and I walked to my car. When I checked my rear view, he was still there on the porch, bare-legged but a little straighter, the pacifier nowhere in sight, the door behind him not quite as hungry. At the bottom of the hill, the radio came back like it had never left, halfway through a song about a highway no one ever finds. I drove with both hands on the wheel, inventorying my own life in case anything in it had, God forbid, decided to become a theme. At the first red light, my phone buzzed. A photo, the paddle in a garbage bag, the knot pulled tight. Maurice, spared, watching from the tub like an ancient lifeguard. Another text. Working on the list. Thank you. In the mirror above my visor, my face looked like someone who had escaped a funhouse. It's a terrible thing to look too long at something designed to make you silly. The trick is to see it, name it, and get back in the car. At home, I made my own bed, even though I hadn't slept in it. I threw away a mug that said "World's Okayest Boss" and felt almost religious doing it. On my fridge, I taped a list, at the top of which I wrote in block letters, "Small World." Below that, 3 items: pay the electric bill, call my sister, ignore any hill that invites me up. A wind moved through my apartment, just a hum, and for a second the cheap art over my couch seemed to breathe. I ignored it too. Some nights I tell the story at dinner if people are in the mood for something unsettling but not tragic. I edit the details. I give the duck a different name to protect his privacy. I do an impression of the wind chime. People laugh, and someone always asks if I'm afraid I'll see the man again. I tell them the truth. I am more afraid that I won't. Not because I want to climb that hill another day, but because if he disappears, the house keeps the joke. And jokes should not own houses. Weeks later, I get one last photo. The crib dismantled. The rocker gone. The mural primed into a cloudless noon. In the corner of the frame, barely there, a duck, smaller than I remember him, as if he'd been dieting. The message reads, "Maurice says hi." The room looks like a room again, which is to say a place where the future can sit down. I text back, tell him the union approves. Then I put my phone face down and make a very ordinary cup of tea, which tastes like tea, which is a relief. Outside, the streetlight does what it's supposed to do. The night is only a night. And somewhere up on a hill, a house has become a little less funny, which, if you've ever tried it, is almost the same as becoming more kind. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Mommy Sarah's Story Time. If you enjoyed the stories, please support the channel by liking and subscribing. Remember, my channel is not monetized, and I write most of the content myself. On occasions when I don't, it's sourced through emails from trusted contacts. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. If you're able to, consider making a donation to support our channel. Your support means a lot. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to sharing more stories with you. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Mommy Sarah's Story Time. If you enjoyed the stories, please support the channel by liking and subscribing. Remember, my channel is not monetized, and I write most of the content myself. On occasions when I don't,